Let's chat.
It's hard. You want to talk?
I know, that's disappointing.
Sit back. Let's work this
How's
out.
it going? What are we doing here? Where are you going? Hey there. Wow.
It's not always easy.
It's amazing if you think about it. Let's think about this.
Strange.
I have some thoughts about that. Life is hard.
Trauma bonded.
Okay, before we start the episode, I'm not gonna talk about what's going on in the United States right now, but I am going to say something about us all feeling a little bit helpless and wondering what we can do to help preserve our democracy, protect our marginalized, and try to preserve our way of life. If you're feeling really powerless and you live in the United States, I recommend that you download this app called 5 Calls. You might have heard of it by now. I've downloaded it. It's kind of amazing. You download it. You put in your zip code. It tells you who your representatives are in Congress. It gives you topics that are currently being debated or under pressure, or under fire right now. And it gives you talking points. It gives you a full script, and it gives you phone numbers. So you can literally hit the number, call the office, say the thing on the voicemail, give your name, ask for a written response. And this actually logs a response. It's citizens speaking to power, letting them know exactly how they feel about topics. It's undeniable. It's the best way to resist the current administration. And you guys, this is not about Democrats. This is not about Republicans. This is about trying to make sure that we don't fall into a tyrannical government or tyrannical way of life, that we preserve democracy, and that we make sure that there are safety nets in place and that they remain in place for the most marginalized people in this country. Again, 5 Calls. It's an app. I call at night, so I know I don't actually have to talk to a person. So if you're afraid of getting into a spirited debate with your representative, you don't have to be. There's a script, and it makes you feel a little less powerless. It makes you feel a little bit more like you're doing your civic duty. And if you're just feeling really unsure about what to do and you want to show resistance, you want to demonstrate resistance, this is an easy way to do that. Something else I've read is that even stepping out wearing bright colors to demonstrate that you're in favor of diversity, or that you're going to be loud and not capitulate and just put your head in the ground and be subservient. It's important. Symbols matter. Symbolism matters. Being out and about and proud matters. If you're feeling like you're not in a position where you can risk your family, your own life, your family's life, if you're an ally, be an ally and make risks that other people can't. If that's flying a flag, that's flying an LGBTQ flag or a trans flag or an ally flag or a Black Lives Matter flag, or if you want to be so bold as to put an American flag upside down, that's not against America. That's saying, help us, America's in trouble, America's in distress. These are all ways that you can throw your support into the collective resistance. And I also want to say that don't let identity politics divide us. We have to accept and embrace our brothers and sisters. We are all humans. We are all in this together. We are fighting against a common enemy, and that is authoritarianism, that is fascism, that is neo-Nazis, that's white supremacy, that's patriarchy, whatever it is. We can't let identity politics, we can't let little stupid issues about the ins and outs of how we feel about each other, we can't let that divide us. That's exactly what they're trying to get us to do. That's what they've been doing for the last 50 years. They want us to be fighting over the little scraps of democracy that they give to us. We need to be in solidarity and fierce and walk outside with pride and in courage and in boldness. And we can't give up. I felt the need to say this on our podcast to the listenership that we have. It's something that we've wrestled with because, obviously we want to be a respite from the hard shit you have to face every day. But we also have to acknowledge that we have ears listening. And if you're feeling really alone and hopeless, just know that you're not. There are little things that can amount to a big wave of change. So don't give up, hang in there, do what you safely can. And if you don't feel like you can do anything, reach out to us and ask us to do it for you. We're in solidarity with you and we stand with you and we're not going to be afraid. If you want to listen to a podcast that sort of addresses sort of what's going on in the United States on a day-to-day basis, there is one that's going right now called The Midas Touch. It's gotten some notoriety because it recently edged out Joe Rogan as the #1 podcast in the country, or however they judge that stuff. They talk about politics. They talk about what's going on in the country. If you want to see what happened, this is just today. We're recording this February 28th. There was this really obnoxious interaction between the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and Trump and JD Vance. And it was honestly like embarrassing as an American to watch. They talk about that on this day's podcast, February 28th. Listen, pay attention, act how you can, surround yourself with people who also want to fight. But also when you're just, going out in your day-to-day life, try to remember that asshole in traffic or that person you can't stand to talk to at school or whatever it is, like those people are human. Those people you should stand in solidarity with. They're not the enemy. Be bold, wear bright colors, stick out, be an irritant, as some people like to say. Symbols matter, flags matter, community matters, phone calls matter. Just remember there are more people on your side than against you. And if we collectively rise up, we can really achieve anything. And I'm sorry that I've taken this much time. And T, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. She's been nodding in agreement with me, so I know that she's standing beside me, with me on these issues. If you have ways, this is what I wanted to say, if you have ways that you're resisting subtly or in daily ways that you can do it, DM us, email us, put it in the comments on our Instagram post, whatever. Let us know the ways in which you're fighting to save democracy in America. Just take action where you can and love your neighbor as much as you can. Welcome to Trauma Bonded. I'm Elly Westberg here with Therese Garcia.
Hello.
And today we're discussing episode 352 of the podcast, This Is Actually Happening. What if they got the wrong guy? A brief. After an unsuspecting man is brutally beaten in a surprise attack, he faces crippling anxiety, rage, and homelessness for decades until he is able to meet the man who harmed him. And this episode is the second in the This Is Actually Happening 5-part series, A World Beyond Revenge, featuring 5 powerful stories of people who are on both sides of tragic incidents of unimaginable harm who found healing through the groundbreaking process of restorative justice. And full disclosure, I work on the show and T's just amazing working for someone else. And she comes in fresh, and the show Trauma/Bonded is for the listeners, a space where we can talk about each episode, digest it, and reflect on it with empathy and also a bit of levity. That's Trauma Bonded. T, what stuck out to you as the heart of Will's story?
Thank you, Elly. I chose one word as the heart today, and that word is unsaid. So ever since Will's attack, one question echoed in his mind. Why? And in this 30 years, he never got that answer. In the silence, it was the things that were unsaid that haunted him, right? So whether he was homeless or not, had a job or not, was drunk or not, was drugged up or not, he tried everything, but he just couldn't shake it. And then it was restorative justice that actually freed him. And then that's what actually helped him start to heal. And I think it was actually something Joanna said about the lawyer's advice, don't say anything. And then when you do that, it's like you don't actually know anything, or you don't actually know what actually happened ever. And that's how the truth doesn't come out. And then that's how the truth remains unsaid.
That was great, T.
Thank you.
My heart is two chambers. Get it?
Oh, yeah, that was like a heart.
That was a heart reference. One, Kirby is a dirty, disgusting company filled with scum. So I'm not shocked that that's who built beat the living daylights out of him was salespeople from the Kirby vacuum company. And I'll get more into that later. But
That's your heart of the story? Oh, is that?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's one of them.
Okay, I didn't know a lot about Kirby, but this is great.
I worked for him.
Ah, wow.
I was triggered. And two, he touches on it briefly, but I think so much of his pain is from the idea that people thought he was capable of doing the things that he was being accused of. I mean, it wasn't just stealing the 100,000 pounds. It was the accusation that he had threatened a pregnant woman and went so far as to threaten to tear out her unborn baby and kill it. He has like a fleeting kind of line about it in the episode where he says he just couldn't believe that people thought this about him. And to me, that really is the heart of where his pain is. It's terrible that he was physically beaten for something that he didn't do and that he went through this horrible process of healing and everything. But I think really what truly devastated him was that people could believe that he was capable of those things. And honestly, if I was wrongfully accused of something, I think that would probably be the worst part of it for me too. I would look into the eyes of my friends, my family, my significant other and say, wow, you think I did this? You believe that I could have done something like this? That was really what broke him. To live a part of your life and think that your values are evident, that your character is evident, and that you could be so easily mistaken for someone that really did something or was accused of something quite terrible. I think that really fucked him. That really fucked with him. And it breaks my heart to think about how he lived with that for 30 years, that he thought people thought that of him. T, before we get into like the line by line, I think we should talk about the conversation, the bonus episode that Whit dropped on Thursday, the conversation with Joanna Chukleva, who is an attorney and restorative justice sort of liaison. And in that conversation, they talk about the framework of restorative justice. And it was really an incredible conversation. I learned a ton. Mm-hmm. She knows a lot. Also, I want to encourage y'all to listen to the episode if you just want more information around what restorative justice is. So one thing that they're particular about is their language, the labels, the terms that they use. In restorative justice areas, instead of saying perpetrator, you would say person who caused harm. Instead of saying victim, you'd say person that was harmed. And it's important to not label someone permanently with these sort of connotations that these labels bring. You don't want to lock people into an identity on either side. And as far as the perpetrator goes, as Joanna states quite eloquently, no one experiences violence for the first time that they cause it or that they encounter it. They're causing violence to a victim or something that's been harmed because they've experienced violence somewhere else. And again, I'm not justifying the behavior, but it's about trying to understand, right, why these people do commit crimes and where they might have learned it from. Anyone that's probably caused violence to someone else has experienced violence themselves in the past. And by removing these labels, it demonstrates that people can change and they can change over time, and then they're not locked into negative boxes. Because the ways in which we see each other and the ways in which we see ourselves are important. They're powerful. It's just it's the same idea of, I say I'm doing something and I say, oh, T, I'm just so stupid. And you would say, don't call yourself stupid.
You just did something stupid. Oh, yeah. No. Oh, sorry.
And so in this conversation, Whit asks if RJ works, and there is quantifiable data, and it's been demonstrated that it does decrease recidivism. And it increases the happiness of the people that do it. And I just wanted to say that I feel like I had this idea back in 2011.
Oh, you thought it up.
I thought of restorative justice in 2011 when I was mugged at gunpoint. Remember what I said to the cops? They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I said, I would like to be in a room with them and ask them why they did this. And I was laughed at. The cops laughed at me. Everyone laughed at me.
Why are they laughing at you?
Because they thought it was ridiculous. And then Whit asked her a lot about revenge in the media, which I thought was interesting because we love revenge stories, don't we?
We sure do.
Admit it, you love it.
I do.
And people seek revenge because they need the satisfaction of that revenge when they're left without answers as to why this crime occurred. This is something we talk about a lot. People have to know the why.
So if they get the why, would they not want the revenge? Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps. I don't want to spend too much time on it because we've already taken a lot of time, but really I do encourage you to listen to the episode. I do want to point out this one point that she made where, you know, there's this perception that RJ is soft on crime, but that's absolute horseshit because it is one of the hardest things you'll ever do as a harmed person or a person who's caused harm is to face the person that you've had that interaction with and either accept an apology or offer one. Accountability is the hardest thing that people do. And to walk the walk of RJ is really difficult. And then lastly, I want to point out what she left us with. And she said, do we live restoratively? Did that strike you, T? If we've never known wellness, how do we get back to wellness? How do we get back to something we've never been? And I was thinking instead of MAGA, it should be Moffitfit. Moffitfit.
Oh, Moffitfit.
Moffitfit. Make America well for the first time.
Ah.
Moffitfit.
That has a nice ring to it. I like that.
Anyways, let's talk about Will. So I thought the beginning was really interesting. You know, thinking about like late stage capitalism and sort of how we got there. You know, all of these Scottish workers were beckoned down to England to get jobs in a steel mill. And this was in the 60s and 70s in the UK. And people started families and they're thriving and they're working hard and they're building something. And then all of a sudden that safety net of employment is sort of ripped away from the town because the company has now
closed? What are you trying to say?
What's the word? There's a word for it.
Crashed? What are you trying to say?
The company outsources its steel production to China, and a lot of people lost their jobs. And now what do people do instead of working?
Get their drink on.
And it's a microcosm, and you can start to understand how when companies pull out of areas and there's nothing regulating them to stay, they're just abiding by the rules of capitalism. And all of a sudden, in one fell swoop, they've upended thousands of families. It's deeply upsetting. And you can see how an area becomes depressed really quickly when a major employer just picks up and leaves town because they have to make profit somewhere else or a little bit more for the shareholders. Don't get me started. And the point is, people want to work. And I'm tired of hearing that they don't, because they absolutely do.
Lazy.
And so this is like the backdrop for Will's upbringing. So he gets glasses and he's bullied and he's a ginger bloke with glasses. And for some reason, the UK has a real hatred for gingers. Have you noticed that?
I don't know why.
UK listeners, let us know what you guys have such a problem with redheads. And he leaves home at 16 to start a new life in Reading. And he's unhomed for, all intents and purposes, he's a child. And now I'm just going to rant for a minute.
No, we've never done that.
Will was able to get a new lease on life because of a social safety net that exists to have homeless shelters, to have employment centers, to help people get going when they're having a setback. This is what makes a healthy society. Okay, we don't live in a balance sheet. You know why? Why don't we live in a balance sheet, T? Because there are no people in balance sheets. It's all numbers. So there's no paying attention to the bottom line in society. We have to take care of people in a society. Anyone who tells you the government should be run like a business is a fucking idiot. A government is of the people, for the people, and by the people, and it's not meant to make a profit. And I threw in a Britishism, you bloody knobhead. So this guy, Will, at 16, he wanted to work and he was able to get help where he could still maintain his humanity. He could still have a roof over his head and food to eat and a bed to sleep in and a pot to piss in. And he could be away from his tormentors, away from his abusers. And all he did was want to work. All he did was want to contribute to society. But he needed a bit of social safety net to help him do that. He didn't abuse anything. There was no fraud. There was no waste. This system, this planned helping part of a social safety net did exactly what it was intended to do. He used it for a time to get his feet on the ground and to get a job, and that's exactly what he did. And he moved on. This is what they're there for. He focused on a career, and he gets to be a new man without all of the bullies of his upbringing around, and he gets to meet nice, new, compassionate people. So if you're being tormented, are you not allowed to escape? Are you meant to stay in abuse because you don't have any money? Is that what we're asking people to do? If anyone presented maybe the predicament if people were presented the predicament that Will was in, 90% of people would have said, run, get out of there, move, do something else. And so we have a social safety net in place so that you can do that. So people can do that for themselves, so they can escape dangerous situations and start anew. Because people are humans. And sometimes we get ourselves in predicaments that we didn't expect, or people turn on us in ways that we didn't expect. And they are harmed in ways that we didn't expect. And they should be allowed to escape those situations and not have to live under a bridge to fucking escape it. Sometimes people need help, and we all pay into a pot toward that. Because sometime I might need help. T, sometime you might need help. And we've all collectively paid taxes so that that safety net exists, and if I never need it, then God bless me that I never needed it. T, if you never need it, God bless you that you never needed it. But sometimes people are going to need it. Okay. And waste and fraud is a minuscule part of it. And don't let anyone tell you that a whole benefit system should be ripped away because a couple people abuse it. That's just clearly not the case. Most people are in it for a time, and once they're able to get back on their feet again, they move along. Anyway, I'm told that the UK has much better social services than the United States, and I think that's demonstrated here in Will's story, and I will digress on this issue for now. So he's 20 and he has been working in employment services or something. And he decides to get a job working for Kirby Vacuum Company.
You worked for Kirby?
Yeah, kind of around the same time. So a little bit later, I was a sophomore in college, and the whole thing, I was at home for the summer, and there was this whole thing in the paper of like fun summer jobs, like $1,600 a month base income. And I was like, ooh, that sounds good. So I went there with all these other saps and was immediately treated to a very long vacuum demonstration.
Oh.
It's Kirby vacuums.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, you basically lie to people to get into their homes to give them a quote unquote free room of carpet cleaning. What they don't know is they're going to get a 3 to 4 hour demonstration of what the vacuum / carpet cleaner does. I also was told I basically wasn't allowed to leave a house without a sale. So it's
oh my God.
It's an incredibly high stress sale situation.
It's like a kidnapping.
Yeah.
It's like a hostage situation.
And I was like 19 or 20. Like I was just a kid. I'm in people's shitty houses. It's the dead of summer. Sweat just rolling off you.
Listen, I can't leave this house unless you buy this. Like that?
I have distinct memories of being on someone's landline in their kitchen, and I'm like, they don't want it. I'm telling my manager, they don't want it. They're poor. They can't afford it. It's like with all of the discounts added, it's like a $1,400 vacuum.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. But that's not how they usually sell it. They usually sell it for like $2,000, and they want you to get financing. It's all very predatory lending. So anyway, I remember being on the phone with my manager being like, they don't want it. And they're like, do not leave that house without a contract. But eventually you have to leave because they're being as nice as they can be. You've already overstayed your welcome because they thought they were getting a fucking free room of free carpet. and you showed them all of the dirt in their carpet and then tried to sell them a $2,000 vacuum. Anyways, it was hell. All of the sales guys that worked there were absolute pieces of shit. They were all money grubby, grossy men. They were disgusting. They were scum. I mean, sorry, most salespeople are. Sorry. So, yeah, when he said Kirby, I wasn't shocked that it was these assholes that got the wrong guy and beat him to hell. T asked me if I ever sold a Kirby vacuum.
Did you ever sell a Kirby vacuum?
Yes, I sold one, and it was to my parents.
Because they wanted you to leave the house.
They felt bad for me.
Get out of here.
So in March 1992,
No?
so come to the big incident. Will is waiting in the car, and he's basically jumped by three dudes who do terrible things to him.
They beat him a lot. They hit him with an iron bar. They drag him while beating him. Dragged, punched, kicked into another car, hit on the head.
Yeah, he was kidnapped.
Oh, gosh. Like he thought he was going to die. He was already saying goodbye.
Oh, what about the memory flashes?
Oh, every time he got hit in the head, he kept getting memory flashes of his dog, of his mom in the garden.
Yeah.
God.
It's those little details that I think are so beautiful that our editing team does. Shout out to Forrest, Chiras, who was an editor on this episode for This Is Actually Happening and is editing our episode right now.
Oh, my God.
He did a beautiful job on that, leaving those details in. And then Will says he's run over 3 times and thrown in a canal and left to die, left to drown and die. And if you want to ever draw a line between how life was and how life is going to be, this is where that line is drawn. His life is never going to be the same from here on out. In fact, it's going to be ruled by fear and anxiety and guilt for the next 30 fucking years. And it sounds like he hides in a ditch overnight. Like he's
terrified.
He's got broken, his body's
God.
broken.
Well, he doesn't know if they're coming back.
Yeah, he's in complete fear, complete confusion, doesn't understand why. You know, when they're beating him, they're saying, where's the money? He doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, they're also asking for his family details, where they lived. I don't know what the hell's going on.
So he's got loads of injuries. He goes to hospital. What was it all about? And at first, the police interrogate him. Where is this money? So he continues to be treated as a perpetrator. They're telling, this is what they're saying he did, that he stole 100,000 pounds and that he threatened a pregnant woman with, well, I already said it. I don't want to say it again.
Yeah.
And there's this big point of they thought he stole the money because Will dressed well.
Just smartly dressed.
Another reason to walk out of the house looking like a slob.
Good thing. I'm so glad. Great investigating, guys.
And then they realize that he is actually a victim, and now they switch the way they talk to him from perpetrator to victim.
Oh, shit.
And I mean, the deep cuts keep coming. And then he finds out that his girlfriend was complicit in setting him up.
What's that about? We didn't really get a lot of details there.
The betrayal.
What? Why?
For money, honey.
Okay.
This is what I think happened.
Okay.
Because he doesn't really know. That's why we don't really get to know. But I think a few of these guys that worked there observed that Will dressed nice or whatever and got it in their heads that he stole the money, and they're talking to his girlfriend and they're saying, we think he stole the money, and if you help us get it back, we'll cut you in on the deal. I mean, there's something like that was happening. They convinced her that, you know, he was in the wrong and that she could get a payday out by exposing him. I think that's what happened. But either way...
Well, she probably didn't get paid. So that was a whole waste of time.
I mean, can you imagine the betrayal he felt, though, when he found out? How heartbreaking. And before the trial, he lives in total fear, and he relives this night over and over. He's afraid of people going out in the daytime, and he takes a lot of drugs and is doing a lot of drinking to cope. And he's totally lost, and he trusts no one. There's stuff about court dates and him missing court date because he got drunk, and then he basically is asked to not come back to court anymore. And this is when he goes into hiding and he becomes homeless, and he says he's sort of living under a bridge, and he does that for 6 or 7 months. And he does this to protect his family and himself because he keeps thinking these people are going to come to finish the job. And if he is near his family, they're going to have more easy access to them. So it's this completely selfless thing that he does. I mean, he also, living rough, he gets to do whatever drugs and drink he wants. But you guys, this is not a way to live. This is not happiness to live.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know where you're going to go from here, but where there's that turning point when he realizes that his perpetrators are like, they have a roof over their head.
Yeah.
They're getting 3 meals a day, and he's homeless.
I wrote that down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't seem
right.
right.
And he does have a suicide attempt.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where he mentions that what was getting to him the most was that people could think that he was capable of doing the things he was being accused of. Mm-hmm. He felt so much guilt and shame. Why didn't he try harder? Couldn't he have fought back? Like, why was he there? Just replaying this thing over and over again in his mind and living in complete fear and anxiety. And he's got no support or help. And the perpetrators are living in a penitentiary, but
they're still in prison.
But they have 3 meals and a roof and some sort of agency, really.
Yeah.
So finally, Will goes to a new town, Slough. And again, he uses the social services available there to help him get back on his feet. He's not abusing them. There's no waste or fraud. He's using it for its intended purpose. He needed to start over. He used the social service as it was intended because we live in a society. Sorry.
Well, so then he's working, but he still can't shake it. He's still getting those flashbacks, turning to the alcohol, turning to the drugs. Then in 97, he goes to hospital, realizes he has kidney problems. He'll be dead by 40 if he keeps going at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's time to stop.
Yeah. Ugh, we've all gotten there, haven't we?
Have we? And then it was withdrawal time.
Well, if you don't go to the doctor, you don't know you have kidney problems.
That's true.
And this is when he talks about taking a year and with Alcoholics Anonymous and support. And he talks about how he's saved by these friends who weren't really friends at the time, but they were just AA friends. And they helped him detox. And, these strangers at the time saved his life and they became his friends. But what amazing humans just to be in the moment to take care of a person that you recognize as dealing with something that you've also dealt with and just to take him under the wing. And detox is no joke. Like, you can be a real asshole to deal with.
Yeah. And they hung out with him for 3 weeks.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. You're hanging out with somebody like that for an hour. You're like, all right, I'm done.
What amazing people. Yeah. And then he gets a job that sort of keeps him clean. He's really busy, but he talks about how when he's at work, he does wear a mask, and then he gets off of work and he's got constant flashbacks and bad dreams, and that fear is always constantly there. And then in 2019, he's watching TV and he sees his harm doer on the TV. And his drinking comes back. He's just triggered. By seeing the guy's face, his drinking increases and the nightmares can come back, and he knows that he needs to get some sort of extra help. But keep in mind, by 2020, when he's finally diagnosed with PTSD, he's lived with this thing for 28 years. It's completely ripped apart so much of his life for so long. That's his life. That's for a good long life. That's a third of your life. For a regular person, that's probably close to half your life. And he finally Googled victim support, and this is how he came across Restorative Justice. He gets into therapy, he's got this diagnosis. He finally meets his perpetrator in 2022. This is literally 30 years after the incident first occurred. He wants to know why me? And the perpetrator says, I want to apologize. I got it wrong. And his just saying sorry, his little bit of remorse completely changed Will's life that day.
Well, I'm saying I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because he was always like, why me? Like, what did I do? It's like, oh no, it was a mistake.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, boom. Huge.
And this 30 years of him hiding and being behind this mask finally pours out all at once. And keep in mind, y'all, it wasn't just his life that he lost. Like, he said he disassociated with his family in an effort to protect them. He didn't want to be near them because he was afraid these perpetrators were going to come back and finish the job, and he could be putting them in harm's way to be close to them. So he lost every relationship. And this guy hugged Will, and Will felt the power of the hug. And then they went and had a coffee. And then the guy took Will home.
Well, they had a cup of tea and a biscuit first.
Yeah.
Which, wow.
Every Brit does that everywhere they go.
That sounded just so
comforting.
Yeah, that was really something.
And I think it's really interesting to see, you know, the way the episode ends is Will's talking about his life being better. And he goes back to the work aspect again. You know, some people, it's just so instilled in them that their value comes from their work ethic. And all he wanted to do was work a good job, be a good earner, be a good citizen. And these are the values that mean the most to him, is having a good job of work, having a boss that supports you. Again, people want to work, but they want to work in jobs where they feel like they're doing something that, one, covers their bills, but two, is meaningful, and it is moving in their life, and it moves their life forward. And he talks about how he wished he would have done RJ earlier in his life, and he maybe wouldn't have lost so much time.
Can you imagine? Did it 25 years before?
I mean, I lost 25 years to something, but unfortunately I don't have like one person I can blame. Unless her name is Elly. What?
Oh, we can talk about that later.
Anything else, T?
Oh, that's it. That's all I got.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This has been an episode of Trauma Bonded. You can find our show where our podcasts are kept. Please rate and review us. Thanks to Will for sharing their story and giving us the opportunity to talk about it. And thanks to the This Is Actually Happening team, including Whit, Missildine, and Andrew Waits, and the maker of our music and website, Nathaniel Trimboli. And thanks to Forrest, Chiras for editing this episode, and to Katie Capel for building those blasted Instagram posts. Please subscribe to us at YouTube and contact us on our email and our Gmail, and find us on Instagram. And we are trauma bonded to the storyteller, to the listeners, and to each other. Thanks for spending time with us today. Love you, T.
Love you, Elly. Good job. Hey, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Trauma bonded.